Oh man, that was painful, wasn't it? Yeah, that was me watching an actual games journalist trying in vain to beat the Cuphead tutorial. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not great at games and I'm certainly really bad at Cuphead, but I can attest the Cuphead tutorial is not that hard. Now, that's not to say that this video is even about Cuphead or to call out this journalist. It's just a great introduction to talk about video game tutorials and prologues. And prologues and tutorials are something that we're all fairly accustomed to. I mean, every game has one. They're all slightly different. Some of them are, about 30 seconds long and just kind of show you these are the buttons that you need to press. And some of them are entire hours long, getting you ready for the rest of the game. Now, to me, in my opinion, the best prologue is one that you don't necessarily remember. The tutorial / prologue is meant to be there to like show you the ropes, but that's kind of it. Whenever you go to play a game, you don't pick up the game because you want to play the tutorial. You pick up the game because you want to play the game. Some tutorials want to prolong themselves needlessly just to prevent you from playing the game. Some of them are so incredibly hard that they just, I don't know, only true gamers are allowed to play those games. And then some of them are just kind of like downright boring. But there are a few as well that are memorable and not in a bad way. We've definitely encountered some prologues, some tutorials that along the way we definitely remember and stick out, and they stick out for good reason too. There are some games that I played where my favorite moments from the game actually happened during the prologue. So today we're going to talk about 8 tutorials / prologues, 4 of them being some of the most memorable, some of the greatest we've ever played, and then 4 of them being kind of some of the ones that weren't so great. And if you like to play video games beyond the tutorials and you're interested in video gaming content, go ahead and hit the like button on this video. It's free, I promise, it won't bite, and your engagement really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. Also, comment down below, do you have any favorite or least favorite video game prologues or tutorials? Let everyone know down in the comments, and if you don't have any tutorials or prologues that you feel like mentioning, just comment your favorite emoji. Again, your engagement really does help out the video. Also, while you're down there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you get notifications for new videos and live streams. And now let's go ahead and get on with the video. So first I want to start off with a prologue-ish area that, don't get me wrong, is for a game that I actually really love, but the prologue piece I really don't love. And the game is going to be Divinity Original Sin 2, and that is going to be the Fort Joy area. Now don't get me wrong, on my first playthrough for Divinity Original Sin 2, Fort Joy wasn't bad. It does a great job of explaining the game mechanics. It gives you some interesting quests. There's some cool loot that you can find. You get to meet your companions. Like, there are unquestionably fun things that you get to do on Fort Joy, so that's kind of why it's at the beginning of the list, because it's certainly not the worst. But the problem is, it's so flippin' long. Like, to get through this tutorial, we're talking it takes several hours. And that's part of the thing for me, is the first time it was great. It was an integral part of the experience. But then when I go back and I want to play it again, boy, does it just destroy the replayability of the game, at least for me. Like, I start playing and I'm like, oh my God, it's Fort Joy again. I can't go through Fort Joy again. None of this is new to me anymore. None of this is exciting. None of this is really doing anything for me. And it's like, it's mostly pretty linear. I mean, there's some interesting stuff, but really once you've done it, you kind of done it. All of the characters' individual story arcs, all of the really big and kind of thick and juicy plot points, none of those really happen on Fort Joy. So like, there's some cool stuff to do, but at the end of the day, like, you're on Fort Joy to get off of Fort Joy. And as much as I love Divinity Original Sin 2, and I do mean love Divinity Original Sin 2, I honestly haven't played the game more than twice because I just don't know that I can do Fort Joy again. Now, once again, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad level. It's just, to me, it's too big for its own good, and we need a skip mechanic. We need something. I'm sure there are mods out there, but as it is, the tutorial, it doesn't do it for me. It's by no means the worst tutorial ever, but it really prevents me from playing a game that I love so much. And that's why, for me, it has to go on the list. Let me know down in the comments if you disagree, if you love Fort Joy, but for me, one of the worst tutorials that I played has to be Fort Joy or Divinity Original Sin 2. All right, so one would argue that for Knights of the Old Republic 1, that the Endar Spire is the tutorial, and that's true. That it truly is. Like, you physically can't even die until you hit a certain point because it is the tutorial. But Taurus is certainly the prologue level for KOTOR 1. And I'm gonna come out here and say this. Taurus is great. I don't honestly know the community's feelings about Taurus, but for me, it is one of the better done tutorials in games. Like, a lot of everyone's, like, whenever I stream Knights of the Old Republic, everyone has stories about what they did on Taurus. I mean, sure, everyone loves Korriban and everyone loves going to Dantooine and Manan and all those other planets and doing all of those fun things. But when you're on Taurus, like, you have memories of Taurus that are fun. Like, there's so many things to do that are enjoyable and are replayable for some reason. Like, I can replay Divinity Original Sin 2 and I hate Fort Joy every single time. But if I play Knights of the Old Republic, like, every single time, I'm like, yeah, let's do the dueling arena. Let's go wreck Bendak Starkiller. I mean, I don't care how many times I do that stupid pod race or swoop race or whatever it is. Like, I always want to see if I can get the very best time on the first try. Like, that's always something that's like in the back of my mind that I really want to do. Everyone remembers throwing the party with the Sith. Like, that's a great time. You've got the racist that you get to go talk to if, you know, you'll want to encounter a racist or racist kids. Really, I'm saying nice things about Taurus, but it's not really that great of a place, is it? But in any case, like, it teaches you a lot of things about the game, and there's not a lot of, like, you know, in-game, really game-breaking things that happen on Taurus, but they teach you things in a way that really stand out to you and remain memorable. And it makes the game replayable, and it's not terrible. Like, Taurus you can finish in, you know, probably what, an hour and a half? So it's not like exceedingly long. I'm sure there's a "that's what she said" joke in there somewhere. But like, for me, I'm sorry, I've got to rank KOTOR among one of the better prologues that I've ever played. So that's my number one, is gonna be KOTOR 1. It's a great tutorial / prologue, whatever. I'm just sticking with prologue at this point. All right, so by contrast, let's talk about Prologues and Citadel Station and Telos. I don't actually know when the prologue portion of Knights of the Old Republic 2 ends, but let me tell you something, they ain't great. What I will tell you is, while I do remember the dueling arena and I do remember swoop racing, you know what I remember about Prologues? Not a whole lot, or at least not a whole lot that's fun. Like, everyone plays Prologues just to get to everything else. And what really hurts is, not only do you play Prologues to get everything else, you play Prologues to get to Citadel Station, to get to Telos, just to get to everywhere else. Like, it really truly is kind of a slog to get to the main portion of Knights of the Old Republic 2. And once again, don't get me wrong, I love Knights of the Old Republic 2. I prefer it to Knights of the Old Republic 1. But the beginning of the game is just so boring. And like, none of it's memorable. Like, we skip all the dialogue with Atris when we meet her. We all have either the Ithorian or the Zerka missions like memorized, so we can just fly through them as fast as possible. Like, basically, there are two portions of the game. There is the prologue, and then there is once you get your lightsaber on. Once you get your lightsaber, fun. Before you get your lightsaber, trash. So like, as much as I absolutely adore Knights of the Old Republic 2, I'm sorry, it's gotta go definitely among the worst tutorial levels. That's gotta be Prologues. And I'm going to extend that, even though I don't think they're necessarily tutorial levels anymore. I'm gonna extend that to Citadel Station and Telos. All of them suck. Sorry, they gotta go on the list. Let me know if you disagree down in the comments. All right, so now we're gonna get on to a juicy one, and this is a game that I anticipate that many of you guys have not played, but now we're gonna talk about Chapter 1, the prologue for Detroit Become Human. Now, this one is very much unlike all of the rest of the prologues that we've talked about so far, in that while all these other ones take multiple hours to complete potentially, the prologue for Detroit Become Human only takes like 10 minutes to complete. It is not an abundantly long prologue, but it definitely will stand out in your mind during the rest of the game. Like, yeah, it does the basics really well. It teaches you, how to investigate things, what button prompts do. It lets you know that there is a timed mechanic that you have to think on your feet and respond to events that are happening in the game. But like, right off the bat, it hits you with some really heavy concepts, some really like hit you in the feels stuff. Like, you're starting off literally with a hostage situation. You immediately, just from like the first 5 seconds of the chapter, are learning that this is going to be about like human/android rights. Like, are androids humans? Or at least, are they like sentient beings? Like, Quantic Dream wastes no time in getting really heavy, really fast with Detroit Become Human. And while not like in any sort of massive way, like the choices that you make in Chapter 1 of Detroit Become Human actually do somewhat influence your gameplay for the rest of the game. Like, if you save the guy on the rooftop, then yeah, the guy's gonna remember later on and he'll call you out for remembering that. And if, spoilers for Chapter 1 of Detroit Become Human, if your main character, Connor, should happen to die, because yeah, guess what? Your protagonist can die in Chapter 1 of the game. Don't worry, he comes back. He gets his own like headstone, like some big stuff happens in Chapter 1 of Detroit Become Human. It's heavy, it's emotional, it's phenomenal. It's so well done. It really sets you up for what's going to be a phenomenal narrative-based game. So I love Detroit Become Human. I love everything about it, and I love Chapter 1. Chapter 1 definitely stands out as one of the best tutorials that I've ever played, by far.
See that, Catherine?
Oh, very strapping.
All right, I'm gonna tell you something. Whenever I'm like a less than a minute-year-old baby and I hear my mother seductively say that I'm going to look strapping, you've lost me, fam. I'm out. Yeah, let's talk about Fallout 3's prologue. It's not great, guys. I mean, it's pretty not great. At this point, I think I'm going in order of worstness, and Fallout 3 is definitely the worst prologue we've got so far. Once again, it's not terribly long. I think it took me roughly 30 minutes to complete. Granted, I did have to take 5 minutes to kill 2 innocent people with a baseball bat because it's Fallout and I'm a bad person. So like it's longer than Detroit Become Humans Chapter 1, but it's definitely shorter than all of the rest of them. But here's the thing, and if you didn't play Fallout 3 when it came out, then maybe you don't quite understand. But Fallout historically before that was like a top-down narrative RPG driven game that didn't have like shooter mechanics. It was definitely like a tabletop game where you say like click here, talk to this person, etc. So let me hit you with this. Whenever Fallout 3 came out and it was like a first person RPG shooter of Fallout, let me tell you what people didn't want to do whenever they booted up the game. They didn't want to be a freaking baby. They didn't want to be like walking around. They didn't want to have a birthday party where like someone gives them a sweet roll.
Let me guess. Someone stole your sweet roll.
Did set up a really good meme, but like nobody needed that. Nobody wanted to get a BB gun for their birthday and go down and like share these moments with your dad. I'm sorry, Liam Neeson, you're a super cool dad, but let me tell you something. I would have still wanted to go out into the wasteland and find you, even if I got to skip all of these like parental bonding moments. Here's the thing, whenever Fallout 3 came out, we didn't want to be a baby, we didn't want to be a child, we didn't want to be an adolescent. We wanted to walk out into the capital wasteland and start wasting some raiders. We wanted to play Fallout 3. We wanted to detonate some nukes. We did not want to be a child. We did not want to spend all of this time. There was a better way. There had to have been a better way. And in fact, there was. I mean, look at Fallout New Vegas's tutorial. Fallout New Vegas's tutorial like town is just mountains better. And it's also optional, which is super dope as well. Again, I think all of these games that I'm going to talk about, I love, but Fallout 3, man, your tutorial, it was garbage, fam. I'm sorry. All right, I had a really, really tough time because like I said, I feel like I am going in order of my least favorite to favorite tutorials. I had a really tough time picking this one, but the next one up is going to be Act 1 from Cyberpunk 2077. Now, Act 1 is really good because it truly like doesn't feel like a prologue. Like it takes you like 3 hours to get through it, but it most certainly like is a prologue. Like the rest of the map is locked off until you complete it. Like you're limited on the things that you can get. And like you don't see the name of the game plastered on the screen until after you complete. So it certainly is all a prologue, and it's so flippin' good. Like this thing is just a straight up emotional roller coaster. It sets you up for what's going to be a phenomenal story. I just recently actually finished for the first time the entirety of Cyberpunk 2077, and that prologue still stands out to me. Raiding Yorinobu's room on Konpeki Plaza was a phenomenal like heist mission. Like that was super cool. And even leading up to it, when you have to go deal with like those raiders that have like the weird like cybernetic, I don't know, those guys were creepy. But like even them, like I remember them. I remember like that fight, like big stuff happened. But most importantly, talk to me about Jackie Wells. Massive spoilers, by the way, incoming for Act 1 of Cyberpunk 2077. I have never connected with a character like Jackie Wells, only to have them flipping die, man. Like Jackie Wells was one of my favorite characters from like a video game period. He was so well written, like even for just the short amount of time he was in the game. Like I adored Jackie. I enjoyed going on missions with him. I liked the camaraderie that V and Jackie had. Like everything about that was great. He was literally my in-game best bud. And like watching him die, like in the Delamain taxi was horrifying. Like just everything about this prologue was great. Just the emotional stakes that you learned are gonna be involved in this game were absolutely huge. Like that's one thing you never see a main character die in the flippin' prologue. Spoilers once again for Detroit Become Human. I mean, I know we talked about it with Detroit Become Human, but in Detroit Become Human, you come back. But like Jackie ain't coming back, guys. Like it was wild. It was absurd. I loved every moment of Act 1 of Cyberpunk 2077. So it ranks in the top of my favorite prologues of video games. All right, so we've come to the worst of the video game tutorials. And this one's not long. This one's not crazy. This one, if you do it right on the first time, takes you literally 1 minute to complete the tutorial. But this is easily considered probably the worst tutorial in all of gaming by almost everyone. And that is going to be Driver for the PlayStation 1. Literally, once you hit go from the main screen, it throws you in a car, throws you in a garage, and says, do these things, you have 1 minute, go. It's like, what are the controls? How do I even drive this thing? How do I move forward? What is a slalom? How do I do a break? How do I do a break? What's a 180? It's just this frenzy of you trying to figure out how to do all of these things in this like dank garage. There's no explanation, there's nothing, and you can't progress to the regular game until you complete all of these steps in the tutorial in under 1 minute. It's like truly only people that are really good get to play this game. So yeah, there's not a whole lot else to say about this tutorial other than like, it's just insane. Like nowadays you never have a tutorial just throw you into the game and say, do it. You have 1 minute, go. So it's definitely something of the olden age of gaming, and it's something that will forever live in, I don't know, infamy or fame, however you want to look at it, but Driver easily has to make it into the worst tutorials in video games. I suppose if you're a video gaming elitist, you could say that it ranks among the best because it's no frills, go be good at games or get the heck out. But for me, Driver, one of the worst ones, but I mean laughably one of the worst ones. All right, so now we have come to my favorite video game prologue of all time, and that is going to be the Shinra Reactor mission, Chapter 1 from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Everything about this mission is so cool. Like just from the introduction of like Cloud jumping off of the side of the train, the music was so dope. Like the entire idea, all of it, the game was beautiful, the combat was thrilling, like the idea of the entire mission, you know, other than the fact that like you're an eco-terrorist, yikes, was just like super fun. You had real like boss fights that you had to do. I mean, yeah, it wasn't like a terrible boss fight. Like Cloud is telling you during the game, like, oh, I should probably use like thunder magic against this guy. But like, it was still like a memorable mission. Like the Shinra Reactor mission was just so much fun. You get to work with your compadres of Barrett and Jesse, Wedge, and Biggs, all who have really interesting and fun personalities, especially my boy Barrett, you know, dad of the year. And it really sets the stage for what this game is going to be about, how passionate all of these characters are for what you're doing. And it just does such a good job of staging the whole game. Just on top of that, the mission is fun. Like you're not going in there and taking a GOAT exam, like you're going in and planting a bomb on a reactor, you're having some boss fights, you're timed on trying to get out. Like the mission is just flipping cool the entire way. You get to learn about ranged combat, about magic combat, about healing, about items. You get to learn about all of your gauges, like you get limit breaks. All of it is just super cool. Everything about that mission is an absolute blast. And if you haven't played the Final Fantasy VII Remake, you can, I don't know if the demo is still live on the PS4 and PS5, but go play the demo and you can literally just play the Shinra Reactor mission. And once I played that demo and I was completely sold on buying the game, like I immediately had to go buy Final Fantasy VII Remake because it was just so much fun. So if you haven't tried Final Fantasy VII Remake, go do it. You will love the prologue, I guarantee it. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us. Those are 4, I don't know. That's a number of the best and worst video game tutorials and prologues in video games. Let me know down in the comments, do you have any other tutorials or prologues that would have made your list for best or worst? Or do you disagree with any of the ones I picked? I mean, that's fine. We can always have a reasonable disagreement. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell as well while you're down there. It'll let you get reminders for new videos and live streams. And as always, your engagement really helps out the channel. If you don't have any other thoughts, just go ahead in the comments and throw down your favorite emoji. Guys, thank you so much. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you in a later video.